So I won't try to make this too long and in depth. I know it's been a long day. I'm sure you guys have been in sessions all day long, so try to have some fun, keep it light, keep it exciting, and get you guys to the alcohol as fast as possible. So the title of the session is "Forget Email. My drone can control a watch. My watch can control a drone." And if you can't tell by the title of the session, this session and the track that it's going to be kind of IoT related. So we're going to talk about how you can control that drone on the floor right there with an Apple Watch, and how you do that using a combination of technologies from IBM as well as some open source technologies, etc. So just a quick introduction about myself. I am Ryan Baxter. I am a developer advocate at a very small startup company. We don't have that too many people called IBM. Maybe you guys have heard of us before. It's about 400,000 of us. Yeah, very small. And I'm from a much colder part of the country in Boston, although it hasn't been that bad of a winter compared to what we had last year. But it was -11 when I left on Sunday. If you want to get in contact with me, obviously I'm here at the conference all week long, or today and tomorrow I'm at the booth, the IBM booth. But if after the conference you want to get in contact with me, my hashtag, my Twitter handle is @RyanJBaxter. Is probably the easiest way. And you can check out my blog, ryanjbaxter.com, where I blog about IoT things as well as many other things, cloud-related things that I'm into as well. So I assume if you're in the room, everyone's heard of the terminology and Internet of Things before. You probably even know what it is, but by way of definition, the Internet of Things is anything that is connected to the Internet, right? In that definition, the number of devices, as I'm sure most of you know, is growing every single day, right? It used to be that we'd only have our computers connected to the internet, and then it was phones, and then it was tablets, and now it's many, many, many types of devices. I was thinking about this the other day. How many devices I have myself that are connected to the internet, and I was counting through it. My car is actually connected to the internet. My car has a 3G connection. My TV, my Blu-ray player. And if you start to look around, there's many, many different types of devices that are connected to the internet. Everything from home security systems to home appliances, refrigerators, dishwashers, all different kinds of things. So the number of devices and the types of devices that are getting connected to the internet is just growing and growing and growing. And according to Intel, there's going to be about 200 billion devices connected to the internet by 2020, right? So that's just a massive number of devices, right? And if you start to think about the volume that starts to grow, both not even just physical devices, but the volume of data that is coming from these devices, very few companies have the compute resources to scale that large. Companies like IBM might, but if you're a startup and you're kicking around some IoT project and you're starting to sell a bunch of devices and you start to grow and grow and grow and you get these consumer devices, or maybe you're not even in the consumer space, you're in the manufacturing space and you're deploying devices across a manufacturing plant and many manufacturing plants and many different companies have manufacturing plants. The volume just becomes increasingly large, and like I said, not only just physical devices, but also the data that's coming from them. So inevitably, you're probably going to end up in the cloud, just because you need the compute resources to deal with the volume that's coming from these devices. So for that reason, IBM has an offering called the IBM Internet of Things Foundation, this offering is kind of one piece to the puzzle of your IoT app solution. By using the Internet of Things Foundation, we allow you to securely connect devices to the cloud. And then once those devices are connected, you can start exchanging information from those devices. You can manage those devices. You can do various different things as far as reading, managing, getting the data, as well as building applications from these devices, of the data coming from these devices. So what is the IoT Foundation all about? Well, the first thing and most important thing is extracting the data from the devices that you are connecting to the internet, right? And to do this, we use a protocol called MQTT. Has anyone ever heard of MQTT before? Okay, a couple of you. So it's actually an open protocol. For those of you who have not heard of MQTT, you can think of it much like a pub/sub protocol. So it works just like any other pub/sub protocol, but the difference is that MQTT is very much lightweight. So it works well in IoT solutions because oftentimes IoT solutions or IoT devices, they are running on a battery, right? So you don't want some heavyweight protocol that's going to suck a lot of battery life. And it works very well where bandwidth might be an issue, right? Again, IoT devices might not have the best internet connectivity, and you want something that's not going to take up a lot of bandwidth when you're transferring data back and forth, especially when you're transferring data very frequently, right? So MQTT is an ideal protocol for IoT solutions, and the IoT Foundation uses this protocol to exchange data from your devices you connect to it. Like I said, it's all cloud-based, so we can scale out horizontally. You can connect one device, or you can connect millions of devices, right? So we scale out very, very far horizontally, and we have many customers who do that. It's not only about, when you have real IoT use cases, it's not only about extracting data and connecting devices, it's about managing those devices, right? When you have a large number of devices, you can't have to physically be next to these devices. You can't have to go out onto the manufacturing floor and physically touch these devices. So having remote management capabilities to perhaps debug issues, upgrade firmware, restart devices remotely is all very important when you're talking about real IoT use cases, and the IoT Foundation provides that for you. Obviously, security is at the top of everyone's mind as well. When you're exchanging information, regardless whether it's temperature data or it's social security numbers, right? You want to make sure that that data is securely exchanged and is encrypted. So we have, you can use MQTT. It supports an encrypted protocol, much like HTTPS. We also can securely connect devices into the IoT Foundation so that only you can connect those devices and only your applications can see data coming from those devices. And you don't have anyone in the world being able to see the data that you might be publishing from your devices. So devices is one half of the story to the IoT solution, or IoT solutions, but the other half is applications, right? So you can publish all the data you want, but if you're not building some type of application that's consuming that data and doing something with it, you're pretty much missing out on the other half of it. So the IoT Foundation allows you to connect devices as well as applications and pick which devices those applications might be exchanging data with or consuming data from or issuing commands to. So both pieces of the puzzle are there in the IoT Foundation as well. And we also have a number of client APIs and libraries. So as far as connecting your devices to the IoT Foundation, we provide a number of different libraries for various different runtimes that you can choose to use that really help you along in getting your devices connected, and also provide libraries for applications for them to connect to the IoT Foundation as well. So for those of you that might not be too familiar with MQTT, or maybe you have no idea what pub/sub is, this is a very simple diagram of how this works. Basically, you have what's called an MQTT broker, and that's that green bar in the middle, that green square in the middle of the bar. That is your MQTT broker, and that's part of the IBM IoT Foundation. And then you're going to have some application that's going to want to consume data coming from a device, right? So that's typically referred to as a subscriber. And the subscriber tells the broker that I want to subscribe to data from XYZ topic, okay? And now you're going to have something that's publishing that data. And that is typically your device. Your device is going to publish data on a specific topic. And if that topic happens to be a topic that there is a subscriber for, the broker will notify the subscriber of the data coming from that device. In this case, we only have one subscriber, but you could have, many subscribers, and they'd all be receiving data in real time, essentially, from the device. So I mentioned that there's kind of two pieces to your IoT solutions, right? There's the device end of it, right, where you're going to be publishing some type of data, or the sensors on this device are going to be publishing some type of data through the IoT foundation. And there's also this application side of it, where the applications are going to be consuming that data. So I mentioned that those applications can connect to the devices and get the information coming from those devices using the IoT foundation. But where do you run those applications? IBM has integrated the IoT foundation in with its cloud platform called IBM Bluemix. So the cloud platform is where you actually run your applications in the cloud, right? And why do you want to run your applications in the cloud? Well, because probably you're going to want to persist that data somewhere, right? The data that's coming from your devices. You're also probably going to want to maybe do some analytics on that data, analyze that data in certain ways. You're probably going to want to visualize the data in certain ways, right? So the advantage to using our cloud platform, which is, the first advantage is obviously scale. We talked about the volume, the amount of data that's coming out of these devices. So you're going to need a cloud to handle that scale. But the other advantage is that IBM Bluemix provides a number of different cloud services that you can integrate into your application. So for example, if you want to do analytics on the data that is coming from your devices, we offer Apache Spark as a service or Apache Hadoop as a service. So you can start to set up analytics on this data. We also offer database solutions that can handle the scale of data that's coming from these devices, and if you need to persist that data, etc. So the two cloud offerings together offer kind of a perfect solution for an IoT application. So at the end of the day, the 1,000-foot view of this, where everything comes together, is you have your device or gateway. So what do I mean by gateway? A gateway is a device that's typically used for IoT devices that don't have internet connections themselves. So many times you'll have an IoT device that maybe just only speaks Bluetooth, and it doesn't have an internet connection. So it might speak Bluetooth or connect via Bluetooth to something like a Raspberry Pi, which does have an internet connection, and that Raspberry Pi acts as the gateway to the device. So you have your device or your gateway, which is connected to the IoT foundation over the protocol I mentioned earlier using MQTT. And then the IoT foundation will also allow you to connect applications, like I mentioned, using REST or MQTT. And then those applications are going to run in Bluemix and take advantage of some of the services that Bluemix provides, such as Spark and Hadoop to do analytics on the data or persist the data, etc. So just to review, just so everyone's clear before we jump into any kind of demos, we have devices which are publishing events. So they're probably, if you have a temperature sensor, it's publishing the temperature that it's reading every so often. And they can also subscribe to commands. So what are commands? I didn't really talk about commands. Commands are oftentimes used to control the device in certain ways. So in like today's demo, we're going to tell the drone to fly, right? And we're going to do that by issuing a command to the drone. So they can publish data or they can subscribe to commands. And when you connect the device to the IoT foundation, you need a couple pieces of information. You need what's called an organization ID. You need some type of unique device ID for that device so you can reference that device within your organization. We also categorize devices within the IoT foundation, so you can have different types of devices, like I might have drones, I might have temperature sensors, I might have, etc. different types of devices in my organization. And you need an auth token, and the auth token is obviously for the security part, right? So that you authorize this device to connect to the IoT Foundation. And this will all become much clearer as we go through the demo. And then you have applications which can subscribe to events, right? They're going to subscribe to the events that the device is publishing, and they might also optionally issue commands to tell devices to do certain things. For example, tell the drone to fly. And they need a similar set of information as well. So they also need the organization ID, they need a unique application ID, and they'll also be given an API key and token in order to connect to the IoT Foundation. So what we're going to do in today's demonstration is we're going to tell that drone to fly. That's in theory, that's what we want to do. We're going to do that by first establishing a Wi-Fi connection to the drone. So the drone itself has a Wi-Fi hotspot. It publishes a Wi-Fi hotspot, but it doesn't necessarily have a internet connection. So we're going to connect to the drone from my computer over Wi-Fi, and then we're going to my computer is going to act as the drone's connection to the internet. We're going to use a node library for this Bebop drone to control the drone. So using this node library, you can tell the drone to do things like take off and land or take a picture and stuff like that. Then we'll register the drone with the IBM IoT Foundation. We'll create an application. We'll register that with the IoT Foundation. And then we'll publish a command to tell the drone to fly. And we'll see that happen in multiple different ways. So with that, I think I will jump into demo mode. So let's start off by first establishing a Wi-Fi connection to the drone. So here I just have a Wi-Fi utility that is for my Wi-Fi dongle on my laptop, and I'm going to connect to that Bebop's drone Wi-Fi hotspot there. So you can see I've now established a Wi-Fi connection to the drone. Okay, so easy as that. And then what I'm going to do, like I said, is use this Node.js Bebop library to issue commands to the drone to tell it to do things. So for those of you who are not familiar with Node.js, I'm sorry, but I'm going to write a little Node.js code. It should be fairly obvious. It's not too complicated. But what I'm going to say here is var drone equals require node Bebop, and that's the name of the Bebop. That's the name of the Node.js library, and Bebop, not Bebop. And I need to create clients here. And once I've done that, I can say drone.connect, and that will take a callback function which will get called when it's connected to the drone. And just for now, I'm just going to say console.log, connected to drone. All right. And then what I'm going to do here is just run this. Try to make that big enough so everyone can see. Demo.js. And I already screwed something up. Is that the way it's... There we go. It's always those parens. So yeah, so there it's connected to the drone, okay? Once we're connected to the drone, we can do things like, say, drone.takeoff. All right, and then obviously I eventually want the drone to land. So I'm just going to set a timeout here to be called so that after a certain amount of time, we're going to tell the drone to land. So after about 3 seconds, we'll just say drone.land. All right, so now if we run this, the drone will take off and then land, okay? Very simple, right? That's all we want to do. We don't want to get too crazy because bad things can happen, and I've seen them happen. So it's run into my monitor, it's gone crazy. So what we want to do next, I'm just going to comment out this code right now so I don't do anything silly. But what I want to do next is actually connect this drone to the IBM IoT Foundation so then I can start controlling it from, or I can at least begin the process of starting to control it from other places in theory, right? For example, my Apple Watch, right? That's what we end up we want to get to, the point we want to get to. So I'm going to, at this point, jump over into Bluemix, right? So like I mentioned, Bluemix is our cloud platform, et cetera, et cetera. By jumping over into Bluemix, I can go over this catalog here. And this catalog contains all of these solutions and services that we have to offer, right? If I filter down, and there's a whole bunch of them here. If I filter down just the ones that we're going to be interested in, which is Internet of Things, you'll see there's one called Internet of Things Foundation here. So it's as easy as clicking this and going and clicking Create here. And this will get me started with using the IBM Internet of Things Foundation. What it's going to do is basically create an organization for me that I can then start connecting devices to and registering applications to start building out my IoT solutions. So after a couple seconds, it's created my organization, and it gives me the option to go ahead and launch the dashboard. The dashboard's kind of where you go to manage all your IoT devices here. So it brings you to this dashboard, this nice integrated dashboard, and I'm actually going to open the documentation as well because we're going to reference that in a little bit. But as far as registering this device within the IoT Foundation, that's the first thing I want to do because I need to register a device in order to connect it to the IoT Foundation so I can control it. So I'm going to click this Add Device button right here. And it's going to prompt me to create a device type. Remember, I said, a number of the requirements that you need to connect the device to the IoT Foundation. One of them was you need to have a device type. So I don't have a device type yet. I just created this organization. So I need to create a device type. So I'm going to click this Create Device Type here. And I'm going to give my device types a name. So I'm just going to call them drones. Right? Fairly obvious. I can optionally give a description, but my name is fairly obvious, so I don't think I need that. And click Next. And then you can optionally add template information to this device type. So if your devices are going to have serial numbers or have manufacturers or model numbers, et cetera, to somewhat distinguish one device from another, you can set up a template here. Again, for the purpose of this demo, I'm not going to do that, but you can optionally do that. I suggest you do. It's actually very useful. And then I can go ahead and submit that. And then if you have some metadata about your devices that didn't fit into those predefined template categories, you can define that stuff here if you want. But again, I'm not going to because it's not really important for the demo. And then after that, I've created my device type. So now I have this device type called drones here. And I'm going to add a device of type drone. So I'll click Next. And at this point, I'm going to give my device a unique ID of some sort. Okay, so the ID that I'm going to use is called Ryan's drone. All right, and that's going to be my device ID, just so I can easily remember it. Again, you can optionally add some metadata here if you wanted to. And then you need to give this device some type of auth token so it can connect to the IoT Foundation. You have the option of letting us automatically generate one for you. That's going to be super complex and secure. Or you can generate one yourself. I'm going to choose to do it myself because I can easily remember it. And I'm going to make mine super secure. It's going to be called my auth token. All right. Super complex and secure. So after you do that, you just click Next. And then you can just review the information you got here. It's fine. And go ahead and click Add. And then it presents you with the information you're going to need to connect your drone or your device to the IoT Foundation. All right, so it's basically this information here. Now, what I want to do is now establish a connection to the IoT Foundation using this information that's been provided to me. And like I mentioned in the slides, there's a number of different client libraries you can use to do that. Now, we're using an open protocol called MQTT. So any MQTT library you find on the internet should work with the IBM IoT Foundation. But we have a number of, if you look under device development here, we have a number of client libraries that we also build on top of MQTT that make specifically connecting to the IBM Internet of Things Foundation a little bit easier. So I'm going to choose, you can see we have stuff for Python and Node and Java and C# et cetera here. I'm going to choose to use Node since that's the language that I've been working with here. So this documentation tells me exactly how to do that. and hopefully, if my memory serves me correctly, I can do most of this from memory. So what I'm going to do is require that Node.js library. So I'm going to say require IBM IoT Foundation library, and I'm going to I want to create a class or get the class called IoT Foundation device. And I want to create a new client from this. So I'm going to say var device equals new client. And this is where you pass to the constructor, you pass some of that information that allows you to connect to the IoT Foundation that we have right here, right? Oh, I'm sorry, right here, this information here. So the first thing we need is an organization ID. It needs to know which organization it wants to connect to. So we'll copy that organization ID, or I'm going to just add the org property here, and that's going to be my org ID. It also takes the device type, which is drones. It will take your device ID, which, if you remember correctly, is Ryan's drone. And then it will take an auth method, which in this case is token. And the auth token we need as well, which was my auth token, right? So essentially what I just did from memory here was take all this information, these properties here, and just pass it along to the client in the code. All right, just so everyone understands that. And if I do that, I can say device.connect, and that will connect me to the IoT Foundation. This takes, this will fire an event on the device called connect. And we'll take a callback function here, which will say console.log connected to IoT Foundation. So now if we run our script over again here, type. And yeah, this not should be device, should be type. There we go. So now we've connected to the IoT Foundation, right? So we're good there. Once our device is connected, and actually you'll be able to see here, usually this updates. Let's just try it real quick. It's not updating automatically. Sometimes it updates automatically. The cool thing was that this morning or this afternoon I woke up, or I went and did rehearse the demonstration, and oh there it is connected here. Here connected on Tuesday, February 16th, right? And they changed the UI here. So this looked completely different yesterday, and this is the beauty of the cloud. Yeah, so it might have a few little tweaks in it, but anyways, it's connected. So like I mentioned, what we want to do with this device, in this case the drone, we want to listen for a command that's going to tell it to fly. So if we go back to the documentation, this is why I opened the documentation here, because I can reference it here. And there's a section on handling commands for devices. So again, this code, sample code here, shows you exactly what you need to do to handle commands. It's pretty nifty, right? So what you can do, what we need to do here is just say device.on, and there's a command event. And then another reason why I open the documentation is because I can never remember all the parameters that this takes, but this is the parameters that we're going to be passed. And what we want to say is if the command name equals, we'll just choose our own command name called fly, for example. What we're going to do is run the code that I wrote before here. And that will tell the drone to actually go ahead and fly. And I hope you guys don't really mind my bad formatting here, but I don't really particularly feel like fixing it too much. That's good enough. But that will, so when our device receives the command fly, we'll go ahead and tell the drone to take off and land. All right, very simple stuff. So with that done, what we'll do is we'll just restart the script here so it has its code running. And now we need to somehow issue a command to our device to tell it to take off and fly, right? We need to issue this fly command to do it. Right, so our application, the application piece of our IoT solution needs to do that. So what we're going to do is jump over back to Bluemix, and we're going to create an application that's going to issue this command. So back in the catalog, there's another very cool IoT solution here called the Internet of Things Foundation Starter. So if you take a look at this thing, it's actually a complete application that allows you to connect. Basically, it's an application that is connected to the IoT Foundation, and it's using, and I'm actually just going to kick this off because it can take a few minutes to start itself up. So I'm going to call this DevNexus Node-RED, and I'll explain why I'm going to call it that in a second. Just click create here. So this is going to create an application running in Bluemix in the cloud. And this application is going to, the name of this application is called Node-RED. Has anyone ever heard of Node-RED before? One person, that's not an IBMer. All right, so even the IBMer didn't raise his hand. Node-RED is actually an open source application or project. If you go to nodered.org, you'll see this page here. And the easiest and simplest description about Node-RED is a visual tool for wiring the Internet of Things. Right? It is, as you might guess, written in Node.js. And it's pretty much kind of like a drag and drop interface for wiring together what we call flows. So data can pass through these flows, and you can do many things with Node-RED that doesn't necessarily have to do with IoT solutions. But it's very easy to start running this Node-RED on devices, right? So you can run this on Raspberry Pis or BeagleBones or Arduinos. It's very lightweight. It works very well in IoT solutions. In this case, we're going to run it in the cloud as the backend for our application. We'll see why in a second. But so Bluemix is in the process of going ahead and spinning up an instance of Node-RED for me in the cloud. While it's doing that, I'm just going to give you a quick couple-minute demonstration of Node-RED running locally on my machine, just so you guys have some idea of what it does before we jump into what it does, what it's going to do in our demonstration. So I have it running here on my machine while our cloud instance gets booted up. And when you go to Node-RED, this is what you're going to see, is just this kind of flow editor type of thing, right? So I'm going to do the hello world Node-RED flow, right? And it's going to be very ooey and ah-y, and you're all going to be super impressed. You're just going to fall out of your chairs how cool this is. So I'm going to drag this input node, right? So you have all these different nodes on the side, and you have different categories here. So input nodes are where data is coming from. Output nodes is where data is going to. So I have an input node called this inject node, and I'll explain why it's called that in a second. It's fairly obvious. And I have a debug node, which, again, is also fairly obvious. Basically, the debug node is going to print whatever that comes into it that is debug tab here. And I'm going to do a nice little hello world example. So my input node here is just going to input the string hello world. And I'm going to connect these two together, and I'll click deploy. And when I click this little tab right here, we'll see hello world come up. Isn't that the best demo you guys ever seen? I mean, it's so much more interesting than making that drone fly. But it gives you a basic idea, right? So I could do many, many more things to the string and then have it go to some output here. Right, so for example, I can add, I can instead of doing this, I can get rid of this string here, and I can get rid of this connection here, and I can drag and drop another little cool node here called the function node. And this function node lets me basically write some Node.js code, so I can write a little bit of logic here. So I can say message.payload equals hello world instead. Right, so now I'm going to get a little bit more fancy. And I'll connect these things up here. And we'll see pretty much the same result, but done in a different fashion. So they're actually, this code is actually specifying the string as opposed to this inject node. And I can even do something a little bit, well, and I'm going to check on what's going on here. All right, we're still staging, so I still have more time to play around. So I can even do something a little bit cooler here. Some of these other input nodes offer a little bit more fun. You'll see there's an HTTP node here. This node actually allows me to create any kind of HTTP endpoint I want. So for example, I can create a GET endpoint that is called hello. I can do something like this. So I can create that endpoint. I can connect it to that node, and then I can have this HTTP response node come out here, have the HTTP response come out over here. So there, if I do that, then I can hit this endpoint, in theory. And it says hello world, right? So I just easily create an HTTP endpoint that I can hit, right? And I can go a little bit further. Again, let me just check here how we're doing. Okay. Well, I'm going to take a break for that, and I'm going to come back in 1 second just because I need to do one more thing. So now that my Node-RED instance is up and running in the cloud here, you can see it's up and running in Bluemix. The last thing I want to do is bind my Internet of Things service to this Node-RED instance so that I can connect this Node-RED instance to my IoT organization that I've created. And this will happen automatically in the process of doing this if the internet cooperates. Come on. I know you want to. Let's try. Yeah, I know you're not happy about something. Is this the portion of the demo where the internet just dies and I'm completely hosed the rest of the time? Is this what this happened? Come on, internet. Is it really that bad? Okay, so it's not the internet. Oh, I don't want that to happen. That is definitely not what we want to happen. There we go. Let's see if this is going to work now. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to pick my Internet of Things Foundation service. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it needs to restage itself after I do this. So I'm just going to click restage. And that will connect everything together. So jumping back to our example here, I can do something a little bit fancier with my little HTTP endpoint here. I can optionally parameterize this URL. So I can say hello name. And then if I do that, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I want to add a new function node. It's going to have slightly different logic in it. And basically what we're going to do here is say message.payload equals message.request.params.name. So message.request is actually the incoming request, and then params is the path parameters that I've set up, which is /name. And then I'm just getting that path parameter here. And I'm going to set that to payload. Actually, I'm going to set message.payload to hello space name. And then if I do this and connect all these three things together here, I can go ahead and do this. So I can say hello Ryan, for example, right? Or hello Ryan. Or I can say hello Mark, right? Mark, right? So Node-RED is a very cool tool, and you can do things like this very quickly in it. You can imagine what's possible then when you're running this both in the cloud as well as on devices. So that's just a quick overview of what you can do with Node-RED. Meanwhile, our instance in the cloud has finished restaging itself, and we should be able to start using it here. So the instance in the cloud in Bluemix has a little bit more features and functionalities that we've added to it, right? Specifically, we've added very tight integration with the IoT Foundation. So when you first create an instance, it gives you this little default flow here, which I'm just going to get rid of because we're not going to actually use any of it. And we're going to start from scratch. So what I want to do is issue a command to that drone through my IoT organization and tell it to fly, right? That's our goal. So I have an output node to the IBM IoT Foundation right here, right? And because I've bound an instance of the IoT Foundation, as you can see here, to my application, my Node-RED application, Node-RED knows that it is done, that is done, and I can select to authenticate using the Bluemix service that I've bound to this application. And I don't really have to do anything else. That's all I have to do. And what I'm going to do here is publish a command, so I'm going to select command in this case. And I need to provide some of the information about the device that I'm going to actually issue the command to, right? So the device type, which is drone, as we've established. The device ID, which we remember correctly is Ryan's drone. The command type, this is going to be fly, right? Because in our code, if you remember correctly, we're looking for a command name called fly. And then the format of the payload is going to be JSON, which is fine. And the payload just needs to have this property called D in it, and that's all it is. This is just a requirement of the IoT Foundation. I don't have an explanation as to why this is the requirement, but you just need to send a payload that has a single property in it called D, and that the value of D can be anything your heart desires. In this case, you can pass anything you want, but in this case, we don't really need to pass anything. We just need to make sure that the payload looks like that. And that's it. So now I have this node here that's configured to issue a command to that drone to tell it to fly. So let's start real simple, I hope, and start with our inject node here. Oops. And what I'm going to do is just switch this up to be a string with nothing in it. And I'm going to deploy this, and if I click this inject node, nothing happens. Just double check that. Oh, was it? Did I mess that up? You are probably correct, Jonathan. What would I do without you in the front row of the audience? I'd be struggling. There we go. So there, the drone was able to fly by issuing a command from my application running in the cloud, right? So we can take this then a step further, right? So I showed you how you can create essentially an HTTP endpoint when I was running locally. I can do the same thing here. So I can drag this HTTP node here up onto the screen. I can say I'm going to create one called fly here, and I'm going to make this, in this case, I'm going to use a post because that seems to make a lot more sense. I'm going to drag another function node onto the screen here, and I want to make sure that the payload is not something funky that's going to mess up the IoT Foundation. So I'm going to say message.payload equals the empty string for now, because I actually want it to use the payload that's specified in this here, right? So I want to continue to use that. And then I'll connect these together. And then I'm just going to also make sure that we send some type of response back to our caller. So I'm just going to drag the response node back up in here. Now click deploy there. I'm going to open my favorite little REST client here called paw. And I'm going to issue a post request to that endpoint. So if I do that, again, oops, our script died. Let's try that one more time. There we go. So now we're able to make the drone fly just by issuing an HTTP request. All right. Now we get to the fun part. Now that I have an HTTP endpoint, I can pretty much use anything to tell that drone to fly, right? I mean, technically, if you guys really want to whip out your laptops, you could tell the drone to fly. Please don't do that right now. Please don't do that. I have had people in the middle of demos, I've set up HTTP endpoints and all of a sudden things start happening because they start hitting them and they're completely unsecure. So, you can do that, but please don't do it. And also please don't go to this URL and mess up with this thing either, right? Because that will really screw me up as well. I've had people do that as well. You'd never imagine what people do in the audience when you're just doing live demos and they see URLs. They're like, I must go to that URL right now and try this out. But don't do that, please. But now I want to, create X number of clients that can tell my drone to fly, right? And what I titled the session was that my watch could do it, right? So let's try and create an Apple Watch app that's going to do this, right? So we're going to jump over to Xcode here and create a new project. We're going to create a new Apple Watch project here. And I'm going to call this DevNexus Watch Demo. All right. And click Next. And this is a fine location for it. And now that I have my watch app set up here, I'm going to make the best interface you've ever seen in your entire life. Because us developers are really good at creating interfaces. But my interface is going to have a single button in it. And the button is going to be called Fly Drone Fly. So I know you're all impressed by that interface, and you think it's super cool. And when you click that button, I want something to happen. So I will make this look a little bit better in a second, but I'm going to connect this button. Oh, pushing the wrong button here. I'm going to connect this button up to the interface controller here. And I'm going to connect it to an action. Connect it to an action called fly. And once I do that, that means that this function, for those of you not familiar with Swift or iOS development or whatever, that basically means that this method's going to be called when that button's clicked, essentially. So I can, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to go to this folder here. So here we can see the code here. So this is the method that's going to be called. And I'm not the most confident Swift programmer like I am with Node.js. So I'm just going to cheat a little bit here and paste in some code. But this, I can tell you what the code does. Basically, this is going to make an HTTP request, right? So this code is going to make an HTTP request to the endpoint that I just set up in my Node-RED instance in Bluemix to tell the drone to fly, right? So fairly straightforward stuff, right? So what I want to do now is I'll test this out in the simulator. So let's go ahead and launch the simulator here. And here's our super duper cool interface. And I apologize for how small this looks. I can't figure out how to make the simulator any bigger. But anyways, if we click this button here, oh wait, I need to do one thing. Start this back up again. If I click this button here, there we go. Our drone can fly. So that's how you control a drone from your Apple Watch using the IBM IoT Foundation. Okay. So I'll show you something a little bit more interesting and show you some reasoning behind why I designed it the way I did. So actually, my team and I made a little bit more complex demo, which I'll show you in a second. But I wanted to explain why I chose to use REST to control the drone as opposed to using MQTT directly. So it's certainly possible to create an MQTT client that runs on your Apple Watch that connects to the IoT Foundation directly instead of using REST in between. But I like the idea of keeping MQTT confined to the server, right? And there's a number of reasons why that is. One, you have to start creating many different types of applications in the IoT Foundation. You get credentials. You need to make sure you know which applications are using those credentials, et cetera, et cetera. And that can kind of explode the more clients you have, et cetera. In some cases, it's just not secure, right? So for example, you could technically write a pure JavaScript client-side application that connects to the IoT Foundation through JavaScript using MQTT. But then those credentials are exposed client-side in the browser, and you don't want that, obviously, right? So it's a big no-no. So even in that case, you want to have MQTT on the server anyways. And the other benefit is that using something like REST and WebSockets allows other developers to integrate a lot easier, right? So REST and WebSockets are something that people know, almost everyone knows. And it's very easy to call a REST endpoint. I think everyone, I mean, who here has called a REST endpoint before as a developer, right? Okay, when I asked who knew what MQTT was, one person raised their hand. And the IBMer in the crowd didn't even raise their hand. So, you know, REST and WebSockets makes integration a lot easier. When you're going to have multiple client applications like web apps, iOS apps, Apple Watch apps, etc., it's a lot easier to build clients in that fashion. So I like to keep my MQTT stuff confined to a server. So at the end of the day, the solution that we've kind of half put together here, anyways, is we have our drone, which is in this case, connected over a Wi-Fi hotspot to my laptop, and that establishes an MQTT connection to the IoT Foundation in Bluemix. And then I have a Node.js server running in Bluemix, which has a bunch of REST endpoints and WebSockets. The WebSockets are there for real-time information. So, for example, which I didn't demonstrate today, but we'll see hopefully in a little bit, you can get real-time battery information out of the drone. You can get real-time GPS location out of the drone, and you want maybe that information to update in real time in your client side. So the WebSockets provide an easy solution for doing that. Other stuff about telling the drone to fly up and down can be done via REST, right? Or you could choose to do it via WebSockets. But then once you have that established, you open yourself up to X number of clients. All clients speak REST. Most have WebSocket capabilities, including your Apple Watch, etc. Yeah, so that's kind of the end architecture that we chose to go with. So I'm just going to show you kind of the application, a little bit different application that we've already built based on that design there. So I'm just going to switch things up here in Bluemix just so I can show you those applications. And the other thing I'm going to do is run another script here. Okay. So if I go down to drones here, in this space we have a number of different applications around using the drone. One of them is called, and again, this is all on the public internet, so please do not go to these and start messing with them. One of these called it just displays the REST APIs that are available. Right, so you can see we have a number of REST APIs to control the drone, tell it to go counterclockwise, clockwise, go up, down, take a picture, etc. All this stuff is available as a ways of controlling the drone. So these APIs are available to all client-side applications. So then our client application is located right here, drone. And you can see here, this one will integrate some GPS stuff into this, so that actually you see the drone show up on the map, but that's not yet done yet. But here we have some commands we can issue to the drone. You see my drone's name is green here. If I, for example, kill this script, you'll see it goes red. So this is some of the real-time WebSocket information going back and forth. You also saw the battery information about the drone. So it's at 63% battery, right? That's all coming real-time down from WebSockets from the drone. One of the other things we didn't show in my little demo that I coded up is the ability to use the camera of the drone, so I can tell it to take a picture, maybe. Sometimes this is one of the more flaky pieces of the library. So sometimes, oh, there we go. So that's actually using the camera from the drone. It's a lovely picture of the floor. Can't tell. I can tell it to take off. I'll try to tell it to take a picture. Let's say that didn't happen very often. And then I'll tell it to land before it kills someone. Okay. You see the battery percentage went down there, right? So it's some more real time. So that's a web application. You also have here. Get rid of this for a second. You also have. Thank you, Mark. A little bit fancier iOS application This is the watch. Well, I'll demo the watch while I'm here. So this is the fancier watch application, right? So you see all our drones listed here. This is my drone here. Again, I can do the picture thing, right? So I can take a picture here, and we'll see a lovely picture of the floor, which probably doesn't come out very good, but that's the picture. And then I can again tell it to take off and land, for example, right here from the watch. And just to prove you, I have this app actually running on my watch. Here's my watch on my wrist. Unfortunately, I can't display this on the screen, but I'll hopefully magically click some buttons here, and this will work. Maybe. Let's just check on my phone here. This is actually running off my phone. Yeah, I'm just checking my phone here. Yeah, so the phone is not happy about something. Connected to some random Wi-Fi network, that's why. I just turned off the Wi-Fi. Let's see if you guys can actually see this part here. Okay, I'll show you this right now. So this is actually my phone here, so you can actually see this on my screen. So again, similar, lovely UI designed by me, by the way here. But again, same functionality. You can take a picture, and we can tell it to take off and land, right, from the phone. And then let's just try this watch on my actual watch one more time here. There we go. All right, one last shot here. Take off and lands. There you go. All right. Cool. So that's pretty much the extent of my demonstrations there. Thank you. Appreciate the patience. Yeah, so as far as resources go, the best thing to do for all things MQTT is go to mqtt.org. Really great explanation as to what MQTT is, how you use it. They also link to a whole bunch of other open source MQTT libraries for other languages, etc. So there's a lot of great resources there about how to use MQTT. Everything Bluemix, go to bluemix.net. And you can do a whole bunch more on Bluemix besides what I showed you today. But everything bluemix.net, you can go there. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial, and you can do exactly what I did today for free for 30 days. After 30 days, the world blows up. No, after 30 days, you have to give us a credit card because we want your money. But the cool thing is that there's a free tier even after the 30 days, so you can run your applications in that free tier if you want. Right? Essentially, the free tier is you can run a 512 megabyte application for the entire month for free. Okay, and the IoT service also has a free tier, so you can continue to use that service. You can only connect so many devices. Like you're not going to be able to connect 1 million devices for free, right? You can only connect so many devices, but you can continue to use it for free as long as you stay under that limit. Yep. And then everything Internet of Things and IBM related, you go to internetofthings.ibmcloud.com and you'll see a whole bunch of resources about that as well. With that, I'll take questions, and I don't want to hold you guys up from alcohol anymore. Yep. Yeah, so there's a CLI and API for everything I've done today in a GUI interface. So, if you need to do that programmatically, that's also possible. All right. Thanks, everyone.